Welcome to today's public forum preceding the council meeting. There is an apology from Councillor Vandervis, and is the only gap, so I'll move to the chair that that apology be accepted. Second to Councillor Staines. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. I'll move to the chair that the agenda be approved with the addition of there's a late entry to the public forum from Lindsay Irving from Seriously Twisted in the Octagon. I'll move that the agenda be confirmed with that addition. Second to Councillor Staines. Put it. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And I'll further move that the minutes of the public forum held on the 22nd of September this year be confirmed as a true and correct record. Second to Councillor Staines. Any discussion on that? There isn't. I'll put it. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And now we get on to the substantive part of the forum. Can I invite Craig Werner up? Yeah, Craig. Who is going to speak to us about the second generation district plan. Welcome, Craig. Now, the microphone may or may not be on, so you just might want to test it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Good afternoon. I'm Craig Werner. I've lived in McAndrew Bay for the last 10 years. Thanks for the opportunity to address you for a few minutes today. I'd like to introduce you to a group called the Harborsides and Peninsula Preservation Coalition, which started around June of last year. It's mainly comprised of those with conservation interests aligned with folks in the tourism industry. Participants from both backgrounds are keenly concerned with the same thing, preservation of our natural and rural environments. And that's why this coalition formed. That's the commonality that the tourism people and the conservation people embody. Preservation is seen to be essential for valuable flora, fauna, visual amenity, and beyond. Conservation of the Harborsides and the peninsula will have a long-term economic impact. As you know, they're top drawers that propel our significant tourism industry. Here's what the widely read travel guide Lonely Planet has to say. They list a group of top experiences in the whole country, in all of New Zealand. It lists just 15, and one of them is the Otago Peninsula, which means it's right along with places like Queenstown and Milford Sound. The Lonely Planet also lists Dunedin and Otago highlights, and it includes discovering the laid-back charm of the quiet northern shore of the Otago Harbor. Lonely Planet is including the north, I more call it the northwest harbor, and you should note also that's why our coalition includes Harborsides in its name, that it's not just the peninsula, but we think there's a commonality between the lands that surround the Otago Harbor. Finally, the Lonely Planet lists on page 547 that despite a host of tours exploring the peninsula, the area maintains its quiet rural air. Quiet rural air, that's what we're inclined to want to maintain and what we see as significance to Dunedin. It's also important to recognize too that it's not just tourism's economic impact. Our rural and natural environments are key elements in attracting future talented workers to our city. People who seek nearby recreation and open space, work-life balance, and a long-term commitment to a region. Talented workers who will help fulfill this council's objective of creating a great small city. To summarize, the stakeholders associated with the peninsula and Harborsides are many, and include the wildlife, of course, and just for its own sake. Tourism aside, it's the right thing to do, and there's several species that are endangered. The full Dunedin citizenry is the largest stakeholder. The Harborsides and the peninsula are key for recreation, weekend and day trip activities, as you know. The entire Dunedin tourism industry benefits when things are happening on the peninsula. There's a a sort of a combination effect that takes place. And fourth, the other stakeholder are the existing and future talent-based companies that can be boosted by Dunedin becoming what is sometimes called a magnet city. In other words, a city that draws talent because of its many fine characteristics. The Coalition's findings to date conclude that the format of the current district plan is not fully supportive of these stakeholders. The plan's implementation and practice in resource consent decisions for more than a decade have eroded significant area natural values. This represents the steady incremental demise of a key part of Dunedin's unique character. With the current district plan, this is almost inevitable. For example, in the current plan in landscape section 14.7, the preservation bar, so to speak, is set very, very low, with the council only needing to have regard to several important high-impact landscape factors. We feel that more than just regard is justified. So who are we in this coalition? By name, we're Norcom Barker of Larna Castle, Bradley Kernow of the Aramona Conservation Group, Lala Fraser of STOP, Neil Haraway of Monarch Wildlife Limited, Peter Hayden, author, visual presenter, John Milburn, formerly of Monarch Cruises, Perry Reed of Nature's Wonders, Brian Templeton of Elm Wildlife Tours, and Rick Wilson, who works with the Otago Peninsula Biodiversity Group. As these folks are busy and generally not keen on meetings, the coalition has therefore limited itself to just two areas: how the harborsides and peninsula have been and are being affected by the current resource consent process, and of course making a submission on the new second generation district plan. In the past, the coalition has met with the Planning Department Council staff and participated in the department's Natural Environment Reference Group. The coalition's concerns have been distilled into 10 core issues, which have been communicated to Council Planning during last year's consultation. And it's almost been a year now since that consultation occurred in 2013. Planning staff member Michael Bathgate, who is dealing with rural issues, is most familiar with a list of these 10 plan concerns. However, there are a myriad of reasons and details behind each of these 10 issues that we're concerned about, and we hope will gain your consideration as the second generation district plan process proceeds. Thanks very much for your time, folks. I put around some leave behinds that pretty well summarize what I've said here and give a list of who the coalition members are. Thanks again.
Mr. Wynn, are you happy to take questions if there are any? Sure. Questions, Councillor? Councillor Benson-Pope.
Thank you, Craig. And can I just be sure that you are comfortable that the concerns that you've articulated to us and have expressed in the reference group have been listened to? Have they been incorporated to your level of satisfaction in the draft documents that are currently under preparation, would you say? Or are you not in a position to comment on that?
Well, I haven't been in a position to see those draft documents.
But you have had an extensive involvement with planning, I understand.
As of a year ago, yeah.
So, in short, your message is stronger rather than weaker controls on particularly the landscape provisions in the plan.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Just checking, taking that point out slightly further, your ambitions would be consistent with the spatial plan as it's enunciated?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor McTavish.
Yeah, just one question, Craig, and that is when you say Otago Peninsula or Peninsula, Harbourside and Peninsula, are you referring to both sides of the harbour, or are you,
That's right, both sides of the harbour. Especially now with Orokonui there, if you have suburban development on the west side of the harbour, it's not going to be good for the escapees from Orokonui, and that I think too would lend to a boost in tourism here in Dunedin.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Noon.
Craig, picking up on your point about the administration of the district plan, are you able to give some examples on the Otago Peninsula that have been through a resource consent process, so through a notified process, and the outcomes have, in your view, created some issues, i.e. the landscape issues that you've talked about and urbanisation that you referred to?
Yeah, that takes some time. There's several, but one that's that I point out, possibly because I live right across the harbor from it, is 7A Harrier Road. This is a house on an undersized lot that was granted consent, and if you look at the bush on that west side of the harbor, this one house is surrounded by acres and acres and acres of bush. And oftentimes what we work against is the term, well, the effect of this was not more than minor. And I think the thinking is many times that, well, you had this expanse of open space, and now you've only put a house that occupies maybe less than 2% of that 400 acres of which this 15 hectares is part of. But yet, in terms of the visual impact, to put a house right smack dab in the middle of it, what you're left with is almost the visual representation that, hey, further suburbanation could certainly take place here. This is no longer a wild area, a scenic area, a special area. You've got all the villages along the harbor side, which are quite compact and quite appropriate for residents. But on the upper slopes, to have these wonderful expanses of open space and then to have a house plunked right in the middle of it, to me and the other people in the coalition seems out of character, and it detracts from what would be a visitor experience either driving around the harbor or on monarch wildlife cruises, etc.
Through the chair, that's on the West Harbour.
Yeah.
With regards to the Otago Peninsula, can you identify any such decisions that you've just referred to on the West Harbour?
Yeah, I have some, but I don't have the notes here with me right now, if that's all right. If you get back to me, I can certainly give you a list. And the list of our 10 concerns, they're, like I say, in the hands of Michael Bathgate. You've probably heard some of them mentioned before.
Thank you, Mr. Werner.
Thank you.
Appreciate your submission. Is Lindsay Irving here? Well, she's not. So that is the end of public forum.